Hi. Hi, can you hear me? Oh my god, I'm so nervous for some reason. Hi, hello, and welcome to the library. I'm Yabi Mitsuhara, your Fox librarian, and I'll be your host today. It has been so long. It has been so long. I feel like I haven't streamed in like a month or so. I'm oddly like out of shape, I think, out of habit. So please forgive me for that. Like I feel very nervous today. Um yes, hi. I hope that you are doing all very good today. This is I don't know, a sort of like improvised stream because I wanted to stream like a little bit at the very least today. But I don't know what we will be doing because, you know, it's kind of like the content doesn't matter. I just wanted to talk with you. Hi, Kali. I get it. It is a bit spooky after a break, but you're gonna get back into the groove. Trust. Yeah. I you know, like I'm always happy to stream. The sound I think is like a little bit loud. Hisashiburi da ne. Yeah. It has been like quite a long time. I actually, sorry, like I'm also like trying to set up things because some like softwares were not launched. But Only delay, never defeated. It's just I've been very busy last week. That's what I said. Like I think in the schedule channel last week, beginning of last week, I felt like a little bit, let's say, sick and tired, and I felt like it would be too hard to stream, not wise. So I was like, yeah, take a few days and maybe take the week. So that's why we were not streaming last week. This week I was like a little bit busy at the beginning of the week, but I really, really, really wanted. Thank you for the headpads. I really wanted to stream at least twice this week because I really, really missed that as well. And hello to everybody else coming. Rani, Sacred Sky, thank you very much for tuning in. Today it's very nice to see you. So I want also to talk, sorry, a little bit about like what we'll be doing in the next weeks, let's say, days and weeks, and we'll catch up. We'll just yap, and probably I will do some piano afterwards. Thank you very much for the 3 years, Sky. What a long time. I know that I should also like redo the subscription alerts and so on, but at the same time I'm like I kind of like the fact that it stays pretty invisible, as much as it's nice to shout out people on stream. I like that I do it myself and it's not obstructing the rest. Hi Cyber on YouTube. Has been a very long time. I know. I think on YouTube it has been like 1 month since the last stream on YouTube. So very nice to be back there as well. I am very good and I hope that you are too. I can watch you, my time is stuck. I mean, you watch me when you want. It's fine, be it like on live or during, with the archives. It's very good. It has been 3 years. How long has it been for you, like Sigrid? 6 years, something like that, maybe. I can't remember. I can't remember when was the when we got like the affiliate status. To be fair, 1,000 years. 1,000 years, of course. Yeah, 6 or 7. So yeah, what was I doing last week? I was stuck in video editing. We are nearing completion. I had like a little bit of help from someone, not like for editing per se, but like for finding like pictures, because I was editing the part where it's like fishing in like 14, and I was made aware that there was like a fishing derby going on right now, I believe. I think it's still ongoing for like 5 days, something like that. A fishing derby where they were catching like community. It's like a community event where they were catching all together like all the big fish in the game. And like a friend took some screenshots for me because like I was too lazy to log in and try to like get some good pictures of the fishing derby. So kind of funny. 1,000 Ed Miyabi. Hopefully not. I think it would be like a bit too strange. Like can I break? Yeah, so that's basically that on the video editing part. I've been kind of like, I realized that like I was so out of touch also with like social media lately. Normally I tend to at least lurk and like repost a few things. Since like the video editing minds, I don't even like go on my social media accounts. And this was the way I was kind of like keeping up with, world news and stuff. And I think we already had this discussion. But yeah, I'm completely out of the loop for basically like a lot of things. It's kind of like absurd at this point. So yeah, the video editing will continue in the next like days and weeks. I think like I'm nearing the end, but it's still not actually the end. So soon TM, soon TM. I forgot like that it was so tiring. And also like I'm taking like off days because editing like back to back to back is just too tiring. So I need like at least, sometimes like one day off where I just do something else. So yeah, crazy how much can happen in a day nowadays. Yeah, completely true. Completely true. It's it's quite hard to keep up with everything. I feel I'm at the point where like the gaming arc of my life is almost over. Like I can't follow everything. I can't play anything. I'm just like basically following games through my friends. And this is very nice. I think this is like good enough, but like I don't have the time to kind of like indulge in it myself. And this is kind of like the first time it happens like that much, I would say. I had like periods in my life where things were a little bit slower when it came to gaming. I think during the heights of the pandemic, I played like a lot, and like I think in 2022, 2023, I kind of like dropped a little bit. And but like I was still playing games, but like right now I'm just not playing games at all. I mean, I'm playing gacha, but I don't even consider that like as it's so ingrained in my routine that like I don't consider that gaming, because gaming for me is playing new games. Someone should give you a spa self-care day. Maybe. Um, I had that like a few years ago, and it was very nice. But like I did not do that again like in a long time. I think because of pandemic and stuff. But yeah, self-care is nice. Like I also took last week for self-care, and it was like actually very nice. Subgoal Miyabi spa day, and like I kind of like do a sort of like recap slash debrief slash like vlog at the end. By the way, speaking of sub goals, the WoW stream will be here. We will play World of Warcraft at some point. Like again, I'm waiting for the video essay to be finished to launch like new, crazy projects and so on. So that's that. Also on what is coming in the next days or next week, I think. So we'll do like some video editing on Friday, just because I think it's like nice to do some co-working stuff. I've been talking with my best friend. How many subs for Mahjong? Like this would be crazy. Like I don't tend to do like sub goals or sub I don't know, subathon or anything like that, because I think like we don't need it. We don't need it. I think it's good when you basically want some money, but that's not the point of this channel, and I prefer just like talking to people. But maybe because I know that I should not play Mahjong. I should not play Mahjong. Maybe this should be like a sub incentive. I would join for Mahjong if possible. Oh no, don't say things like that, because like no, I kind of want to play some community Mahjong, but like I know it's a mistake. I know it's a mistake to do so. I'll think about it. You know what? I'll think about it at some point. Maybe for the anniversary of the channel, actually. Thank you. Oh my God, you are faster than me. It's like normally I think I'm pretty fast on like using auto mode and declining, stuff. But like you are no playing. Oh my God, I cannot play. I just have to watch Mahjong. I cannot even play myself. This is crazy. Oh my God. But yeah, maybe we can do that like for anniversary. Like you play within you, I can watch, I can like yap. I think it can be pretty fun. Maybe for anniversary. I think anniversary, I kind of want to do something like a bit long. We'll be streaming a lot, not a lot like a lot of hours every day, but mostly we'll be like doing a week probably where I'll stream every day, like 2 or 3 hours, something like that, maybe. I don't know. Library tournament, and you do live commenting. I could do that. It would be fun. Although I feel like a little bit self-aware, like doing that on the Discord, I think it was okay, but like doing that on public, I think it's like a little bit more insane. But yeah, so wait, I was talking about things. So there will be the co-working stream on Friday, and 12 hours stream insanity. I mean, I can do, okay, I'm going like on tangents again, but like I can do 12 hours, I think, back to back, but like it would be too insane for people, I think. I'm kind of also, you can leave whenever you want, but like I kind of want this to be fun for everyone as well, so that like, people do not have like to stay on stream for an entire day or something like that. So I kind of want to spread that like over a week, mostly. I'll think about things, because like I was like, we were talking about like karaoke, and I want to do that on stream for anniversary, probably. So that can be fun. Maybe we will be having like on Discord at some point a private, karaoke or whatever thingy, just to kind of like get into the mood or something like this. Okay, so let me finish my point. Co-working on Friday, and then I've been talking with my best friend, and I did something, in the past, where I was talking about Zelda games. I have with my best friend a sort of like series where we talk about, we were replaying through all the Zelda games, and we were talking about it quite in depth. Trying to like analyze every title one by one, and answering the question, why is a Zelda game a Zelda game? What makes a Zelda game a Zelda game? And this has been like an ongoing series for a long time, a long time. It has been something for, I think, I can't remember when we started. It had to be around the time, maybe like 5 years ago, when like COVID really started to hit us. And we have been like going through the game quite slowly, and outputting like episodes one after the other. And so right now we are stuck on Skyward Sword. That was like the game has been played, notes have been taken, but like we never got around to record the podcast. And it has been something that is here, that must be done at some point. And I think like we wanted to record that like last year. I think it was like October of last year, something like that. So more than a year ago. And it kind of like creeped up in one of our discussions lately. And I think like, well, Burtnot, that you might have seen like on the chat, sometimes, was like, yeah, let's just do that. Let's just record the episode right now. And I was like, you cannot just send things that are like so big like that without, giving me time to prepare and stuff. But sure, we can do that. And normally I would do that in French, but I figured that it could be interesting content to do like in English on this channel. So, podcast more upon interrupt. We are slidecasting everything. We're slidecasting for 3 hours. So I believe that in the near future, and by the near future, I expect like either this weekend or next week, we will be recording this podcast. I think it will be live, because I'm too lazy right now to do some sort of like editing. I don't have the time to go through, footage that I have like, from the game. I've recorded my entire playthrough, and this is something that I have like in my files. but I'm too lazy to do the editing. So it will just be like a live recording with like no footage whatsoever, or like minimal footage. And we'll be talking about like Skyward Sword for, as long as we want. Usually this podcast is between 2.5 hours when we have like very little things to say, and it can swell to like 4 hours. It's just, an uninterrupted yapping for so long. So that's something that you can look forward to in the next days, I think, because we really want to get back into it. And I think it's very neat content on the channel, on Miyabi's channel, just because it kind of like fits the spirit of the library. Like we are talking about the games individually and like in a very in-depth manner, but I also think that we have like a very focused vision on like culture and society. And that for us, like it's not just talking about the game; it's talking about like the context and like what was happening in Japan at that time that like kind of like informed the way the game has been structured. So we were talking, for example, in I don't know, for example, in Link's Awakening, we were talking about like how it's like a reflection of like the anxiety during the kind of like the lost decades, to the beginning of the lost decades, and with like the economic bubble and stuff. I think we talked about the aftermath of the lost decades in Twilight Princess. We talked about kind of like reconnecting to nature in the Zelda, the DS like titles, and I have like very interesting ideas about like a Skyward Sword, because it's kind of like at a period where you try to get like some optimism back, but it's done like in a very specific way. So yeah, very, very interesting to talk about this. Like I'm very eager to record that, so that will be like some content for next week, probably. Lost Decade mentioned, post-war Japan mentioned, and there it is. We are back again. I think it's the only time I will mention the Lost Decades in this stream, so it's only one drink, which is probably fine. So that's basically it. The video essay, again, it will come at some point, I think in the end of the month, probably. And that's basically it. And after that, we can like start our new projects, meaning I can like play Silent Hill F. I can actually play the game and then start to edit like write the script for the Silent Hill F video. It never ends. Don't you think that maybe someone should find those lost decades at some point? I think they are lost forever. And also there's the kind of like debate of like, are we still in the lost decades nowadays? I don't think it's the case, personally speaking. Like my opinion on that, my analysis on that is that like the lost decades kind of like finished with the triple catastrophe of like 2011, and it kind of like transitioned immediately into what I call like the Abe years, which are quite similar to the lost decades, to be honest, but with this idea that like it's a country traumatized by Fukushima and the triple catastrophe. So that's my opinion, and I believe that nowadays we are, I think, in the post-Abe years. For me, like the post-Abe years started maybe like 2 years ago, something like that, because we see like some kind of like shifts. Mostly, I believe that there's a really deep nostalgia that is like getting here for the Heisei era. Like we are in the Reiwa era right now, and in the Heisei era, so the era just before, you had like a nostalgia for like the Showa era. And we kind of like see that right now, where the mid 2000s were kind of like seen as a very nostalgic period, but not necessarily through this, more American uh, aesthetics. Like it has this very like sepia and gentle vibe that you would associate to like some golden age, like long in the past. And I've seen that like in a few music videos that I was like checking lately, and I was like, this is very, very interesting. And for me, this is the kind of like one of the aspects that makes me think that we are in a new psychological era for Japan right now. And the other criterias being that we went through COVID, probably that was like one of like the element that would like separate the two periods. And also there's this shift in culture, I think, about motherhood. I think we're talking less about motherhood now and more about like fatherhood. And also like we have a lot of like women and like fiction that says we don't care about like getting children anymore at this point. Like this has been like the running theme of like, Shinzo Abe, but it just doesn't matter anymore at this point. And I think like this is not like a complete shift, but at least like enough like works for me, or showcasing a new idea. And yeah, I think it like in the past 2 or 3 years, there has been a shift in Japan. So this is pretty interesting to analyze. What am I talking about? Like, why are you letting me talk about this? Okay. The last decades to kind of. The distant future, the year 2000. Can you imagine it? In the far future of like 2000, we will have flying cars. Okay, so that's basically that for yapping about like Japan. I don't want to do that like for hours, because I think like it kind of like becomes a tired joke at this point. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about that at some point also, because I think it's like important, and this is quite uplifting. But I mentioned that like she's letting all the 1 week yap accumulated. Like, it's just like bleeding at this point. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like Mamdani, right? And like the Democratic victory in like New York. I believe that like everyone has seen the news to some extent, because like it has been such a good thing, such a positive thing. And I don't know, it was so uplifting is what I meant. I had personally no doubt that he would win after seeing like the result in the Democratic primary. I think this was like pretty clear that he had like a crazy momentum that would kind of appeal to like a generation, and entire generations of people that would not vote normally. And I mean, that was a landslide. So, that's very good. I wanted to talk a little bit about how it kind of like happened, because it's such a textbook example of like how you build a political movement, I believe. I don't know how much you have followed like Mamdani's campaign. I think probably last time I mentioned Lost Decade, I drank 10 times. So I don't know how much you have followed like the campaign, but it was everywhere at some point. If you were on social media, if you were on the internet, you could not like go anywhere without seeing like Mamdani at some point, because people would just like repost things so easily. And when I first heard of him, I think that was like at the beginning of the year. I was like, yeah, he seems like a nice person. He seems like a person I would get behind like easily. But I kind of like follow that from the corners of my eyes. And at some point I was like, I just need to repost what he's posting because it's just that good. Um, like the way his campaign was kind of like structured is that like he was in New York for a very long time. I mean, in New York, assembly for a very long time, but he was never someone very important. And I think like it was at some point like last year, maybe beginning of last year, he kind of like tried to go into like some places to see if like his talking points were working on people. And mainly, speaking about like freezing rent in certain areas of the city. And he met like incredible success, like even in, close committees and stuff. And that kind of like pushed him and like his team to try to go for something serious. And like the way he was able like to propel his message was through grassroots activism, right? It's just like normal people that would just like knock at your door and talk about like Mamdani for a while, and trying to be like extremely relatable, being like you like I don't vote, but like I've been like kind of like inspired by like Mamdani, and that's why like I'm knocking at your door and like trying to talk about you about like New York's problem issues and like what we can do together. I'm not here to convince you necessarily to vote for him, but at least like to know that like there is someone that is thinking about those issues, and then you can make your own decision by yourself. And it was a very, very grassroots and activist-led campaign, quite similar to what we have seen with Bernie Sanders back in, oh my God, it has been so long, back in like 2016, right? Where like the campaign was uh, uh, funded by people. And that was the same thing that happened with Mamdani's, right? It's like his campaign was basically founded by people, and he had to close donations because that was coming too fast. And you have like this incredible movement where I think like his basically pool of volunteers were like something around like 100,000 people. 100,000 people that were like doing work like on the field for him. And they just kept the momentum going and going. And they also had like this incredible social media strategy where they would not shy from like main talking points. They would not shy from like talking about, Palestine, for example, talking about rent, talking about like racism, talking about like LGBT issues, talking about like intersectionality. And that was just like, it felt very genuine. I think like his most interesting things were like his kind of like shorts where he's talking about like certain important people that made the history of like New York through their activism. And it was so weird seeing like a politician basically talking about like people that in some circles that we know very well, but that are not talked about by like, mainstream politicians. And talking about them in such an uplifting way, that felt so good. That felt so good to feel like hope. And yeah, really incredible. I don't know. I don't think that the best strategy for getting votes is getting a van with megaphones. No, I mean, Japan's campaign. It's literally just like a masquerade. It's literally just a masquerade of a campaign. I think you kind of like linked the video in the server, and in this video, for people that have not seen, Dogen-san was talking about like how the Sanseto campaign mostly hinged upon like social media clickbait, basically. And that's kind of like what you see when you check like the actual exit polls of like the vote, is that Sanseto really got points with, this like new conservative, right-wing youth that kind of like dislike both like foreigners and like women and LGBT people. And of course, like Sanseto, as Dogen said, will never say that like overtly, but this is what you find when you check like those videos on YouTube. But yeah, what was very strong with Mamdani is that like he went for like this strategy of like knocking at people's door and talking to them very early. Because in American politics, that's basically what you do in your last stretch, in the last stretch of your campaign. More often than not, you just like rely. They don't do like cars with like megaphones, but they do like TV ads, right? And a lot of people normally would just like rely on those ads, but Mamdani was like, I don't care about them. I care about like talking to people, because you do not convince people that don't want to vote through advertisement. You need to talk to them. And that's why, sorry, my throat is like dying right here. That's why it was like so efficient. And of course you win. Of course you win when you are like that relatable with people. And I think the most important thing right now is like, okay, so now he's the mayor of New York, right? And it's like, what are you doing with like all those people? Because to some extent, Obama's victory in 2008 was kind of like also a grassroots movement to some extent. But he was like, he had like a very strong message, right? Yes, we can was like really strong. But he gets into the office and he lets like all of that die. He lets all of the momentum from like his movement die, and it fizzles into nothing. This is literally wasted potential. And I think what is very interesting with Mamdani is that he's like, we have built like such a powerful movement that like it makes no sense to kind of like let it die. And I know that like a lot of people are like, oh, Mamdani should be, he is so on pace to become like, the president at some point with its energy. And it's like, surely not. Surely not, because like his strength was being like so relatable to people in New York. And like, I think talking about like your local constituents and like the national public, this is very different. That's why in Japan, like you need to convert some of your ideas into a national level, but most of the time to get elected, you just have to focus on like local politics. It doesn't matter to like try to like have a vision at a national level, because people will vote for you at a local level. You need to be liked at a local level to be elected in the house. Well, it makes sense, right? But like, it's far more prominent than what you might think. You don't need a big vision overall. Like your party needs a vision, but not you. And that's why like there's a lot in Japan, there's a lot, every time you have an election, a lot of like articles about people that are deemed kind of like, I don't know, parasites, because they come and compete into like a district that is not theirs, and they just try to score points without having like local encourage. And I think like if you check that, and especially Koimizu's premiership when he was like going through elections, you had basically kunoichi. So like, woman ninja, to kind of like say that like bluntly, because it was like just sending pretty women in certain like district to get like votes just because they're women. And this was like crazy behavior. And I think like Mamdani's campaign was the opposite of that. It was like a local campaign that was like grounded into like facts and into, relatability. Because when you looked at Kamala Harris's campaign, you had like this running theme of like joy, right? you had this running theme of like joy and trying to be like happy about America, but she was so unrelatable because it's like, why are you happy? We don't even know why you're happy. And like for us, average American, like I'm not American obviously, but like I can put myself at their place. For us, there is no reason to be happy, to feel like any sort of joy at the current political landscape and about America in general, because like look at the state of America. You know, after the Biden's years, and Mamdani took like the same idea of like joy, but he linked joy with like very specific examples of what makes life, you know, worth it, what makes this city worth it. I think this was like such a good campaign, and like that's why he should stay at a local level, in my opinion, because that's where he shines like the most, and he felt like so genuine in all his like shorts and stuff. Okay, let me read. I had to move from my house to my grandma's during campaign season because those vans were insufferable and I felt unsafe. I think this is like also the point of like a failure of politics, because like politics, to some extent, it should be fun. Ideally, it should be fun. You know, of course, it's not, because like we are living in a world that is crazy right now with like, it's like a capitalistic hellscape, you know, fascist landscape, whatever. But politics and involving yourself into politics and activism, it should be fun because like you're doing something good, in my opinion. So yeah, the only people that run around like this are like people that boys crap. So if a politician dared doing something similar, probably they would be thought to be at the same level. Are you talking about like people in vans? It feels crazy to torture people for votes. Yeah. To be honest, a lot of people online felt that Bernie's win was assured, and then they found out that online presence did not translate into party lines, so you never know. I think like the point is that like you need both nowadays. You need both social media appeal to like stay visible, but you also need like a very strong grassroots movement. The problem with Bernie is that like he is relatable. The same way, you know, AOC is relatable, but you cannot build like a grassroots movement that easily at a national level in such a short time, is what I mean. Like, to be able to be relatable to people, it takes like a lot of time. At a national level, it takes like a lot of time. It's not, oh, we are trying something like, you know, we know that like there are presidential elections coming next year and we do like the work for like a year and a half. It doesn't work that way. Like social presence and like grassroots movement at the national level, unless you have like extraordinary, you know, events like, I don't know, Vietnam War that are kind of like helping foster those like movements in like universities and stuff, it's something that you build over like, you know, 5 or 10 years. And unfortunately, because Bernie Sanders is so isolated from like the Democratic establishment, and also because he kind of like believes in staying within the Democratic Party nowadays, he will never achieve like this state again. And I think he's kind of like aware of that, and Bernie Sanders is basically doing like the old sage. He's playing the old sage and trying to guide the next generation. He's like kind of like the moral compass of like this, you know, progressive squad, new left, whatever you want to call it in the US. And he is trying to be like, I just put my name next to people that are doing like excellent work, because those are the people that you need to follow in the future. That was the case with AOC, that was the case with the progressive squad, that was the case for Mamdani, and that's the case like for all of the progressive like people that have won their, you know, elections in the past like months. And I think it's a good strategy. But I think it's also the same thing we've seen in the UK with oh my god, his name is like escaping me. Corbyn, where Corbyn had like a very strong presence online. and it was great. I really loved Corbyn's campaign online and even like at a local level, but I felt like because he was running an entire national campaign, it did not completely work for him. It did not completely work because he lacked the local anchorage for his grassroots movement. Like, I think his strategy of relying on like the new generation of like progressive people, very good, but it would have worked if that was spearheaded, I think, like 3 years prior. And unfortunately, we saw what happened with like Corbyn. He was short of like really picking up a momentum that his adversaries could not like fight. You are still a toddler. University, college. Like, I mean, you know, college. You go into college if you want to go into college. There's no obligation to do so, especially nowadays. Pretty fulfilling moments during my involvement with political movements in uni through helping people is just fulfilling. I mean, when you are really deep into it, you know, your hands are into like the work, it feels like very fulfilling. Makes it a show of power. Exactly, you know, it's a show of power. I think you're exactly right. I feel like the issue with US politics is that the Democratic is kind of like center-right pro-capitalism, and trying to get them to shift left is kind of crazy. That's my problem with like you know, the Progressive Squad, Bernie Sanders, and all those people staying in the Democratic Party. But at the same time, I get the idea that like they feel that they cannot leave yet. They feel they still do not have like enough leverage to kind of like build like a third way to the left of the Democratic Party. I mean, Sanders was an independent for a very long time, but like he joined the Democratic Party because he felt that strategically it was like easier to make his ideas more mainstream over the long run. And I think unfortunately for the US, this is the only way to go. It's like you stay for, if you are a politician, like if you are becoming a politician, you need to like sacrifice a little bit of your morals anyway. I mean, if you want like to stay, you know, morally pure when it comes to like those topics, don't go into politics. Like do like activist work, grassroots work, but never go into politics, like representational politics. But like, I get the strategy that like you go into like the big group trying like to slowly make your ideas, you know, understandable and hearable for like the average person. And I think that's what like Mamdani is doing, because when you check Mamdani's online presence in like the shows that he's making, this is way more, you know, targeted and pointed as like when he's answering questions on national television, because he needs to like tone down himself a little bit to make himself like relatable. And you can ask, are those people traitors for going into the Democratic parties, or are they like doing the work for, you know, the next generation to have like enough leverage in the future? And my take nowadays is probably like the latter. I think they are trying to lay out foundations for later, and they are being like, we are watching you, you know, the No King protest, we are watching you, you're the future, and we are kind of like, to some extent, like taking a hit so that like you in the next generation will be able to really change things at the national level. I mean, being an adult is like, it's complicated. So it's like kind of like understandable that, you know, you feel lost as a new adult. Sometimes I also go to political events because their tents give freaking. Oh my god, she is just here for the snacks, by the way, but this is quite good. Here in Spain, we have the concept of political barons, which probably translate to other countries like local politicians that have big influence into party lines. The issue with the Democrats is for Bernie, like president to work, you need more of those leftist mayor governors. And I think it's the case, right? If you elect a president against their own party barons without forcing them out, you won't get anything done. Exactly. And I think this is kind of like what we are seeing to some extent in the United States right now. Like we know that like a lot of like local politicians that have won are kind of like a little bit more towards the left. And you see like what you call like those political barons that are kind of like getting too old and they're retiring. And you see like a recycling of like some blood in the Democratic Party, not enough right now to do anything, but it's going in the right direction, I believe. And like the biggest upset victories for the Democratic Party, in my opinion, were very progressive people that were kind of like challenging the establishment and like getting into like spots of power that are kind of like key spots. And maybe, you know, in 10 years, it will like translate to something interesting. The problem, of course, is that like, do we have like 10 years? With like the current landscape, be it, you know, in the United States or the West in general, do we have 10 years? I think it's like a fair question to ask, and I don't have any answer. I think that at least, you know, people are trying, which is like very uplifting, and yeah, we do what we can. To be fair, I know basically nothing about US politics. I try to follow at least like national politics and, you know, very important like governorial races and stuff like this. But to be fair, like I know that my best friend has like a better handling about this because for reasons. But I don't follow every race. I try to stay like, you know, still informed about like most political landscape around the world, just because I think it's like interesting and like it's kind of like useful for my research. But yeah, we do not even have 1 month, but if we rush things, it will be worse. I think yeah, you're completely right. I think you're completely right. That's like the way to summarize it. It's like we are already too late, but we still need to do things like cleanly. And to be fair again, like I think, you know, Mamdani's victory and the No King protest movement, I think this was like very good. It felt like very good to see, especially from a country like the US. So, you know, congratulations to all the people that were doing like the work at a great grassroots level, because I think this was like amazing work. And all the people that have volunteered into this, like they can be like very, very proud of themselves. Like the fight is not over, but like this was like very, very good to see. And you know, I'm expecting as much. I'm not expecting, but like I wish we had like this in Europe right now. Like I read a couple of months ago that even the 1.5 global warming target was already unachievable, which should be settling for 2 degrees. I think even 2 degrees is like kind of like stretching it right now. It's kind of like stretching it right now. We are basically too late for a lot of like the... I don't know if I have the article. I think it has been like quite a long time ago, so I don't know if I have the article. It will be too hard to find. But like there's like a list of like environmental targets that we need to achieve to, you know, protect our environment. And some of them are just too late. We're just too late. I think the only target that today is okay is the reconstruction of the ozone field, right? Because that was like a big thing 10 years ago, and people made some changes because they were not like that crazy capitalistic wise. So we know that the ozone field is kind of like recovering in a nice pace, but like most of like the other targets are kind of like we're already too late. For example, like acidification of like the oceans and stuff. And we know that like that there's not much we can do about them, but we still have like other targets that are still, you know, possible to salvage. And yeah, we need to like kind of adjust into that, but we are basically too late. Like the whole discourse about like some countries will be flooded. It will happen. Like at this point, it will happen. There's like not much we can do about this in the long term. I'm sorry. If you are secret and you live in Denmark, have a plan for the next 10 years. Is the only thing I have to say. There is no other good option the way the current system functions, though. It's far from ideal, but it's a least bad option. And the far right has certainly succeeded in doing that to the Republicans. I do think so. I do think you're right here, but I mean, we need to trust at some point. Also, we need to trust in like the ability of like people to kind of like go through the worst, because I think like, you know, for us at like an individual perspective, it's very depressing to see what is happening. But to some extent, it's kind of like what happened in the past in history, like, you know, a number of times already. And it's like we pull through, right? Even if like right now it's extremely bleak, we pulled through World War II, right? And the rise of like fascism in Europe. And it doesn't mean that just, you know, by snapping your fingers, things will get like right. But I think it's important to kind of like keep hope that we will see like a better tomorrow, or we need to trust into that, because if we don't even trust into that, we kind of like already have lost. And yeah, 2 degrees Celsius is hard to get, but could be achieved now. 1.5, yeah, it's physically impossible. It's too late. It's literally too late. 2 degrees, it's like, if you're, you know, realistic, it will not happen, but it could be achieved. It's just, you know, between ourselves, we know it won't. Like, you can, you know, you can pee in your shower if you want, but it will not help a lot in fighting climate change, I'm afraid. However, fish tongues go up, not even because like the oceans are like getting very, you know, acid at this point, and like if you check also the survival of the ecosystem, which is also like a target to achieve in protecting the environment, we're already too late into that. Like the ecosystem will just collapse, and most of like a lot of like fish and aquatic species are just disappearing because they cannot handle the new, like the warmer ocean, and they cannot like handle also the acidification of the ocean. Time to get a visa to move into Maze Reef. At least we can play with your physical mahjong set in our puzzle maxing anarcho commune. I mean, we need to like find, you know, a forest on a hill, and then we can like live our last years there. Yeah. We have been talking a lot about politics. I'm sorry, you know, I don't mind doing it, but like, I know this is a very political conversation overall, which is like very funny to come back to. Was there like other interesting things that I wanted to talk about, like in here? I don't think so, to be honest. Okay, I have like another topic, because I was talking about that. I was talking and kind of like seeing people talk about that like around me. And I know this is kind of like a topic we have explored a little bit before. A forest on a hill doesn't seem like a half bad idea. It has, think about like, you know, Heidi, or those like kind of like Austrian Alps type manga anime where it's just like we're having fun and stuff. Basically, it's like Mooming if it was like shoujo coded. So I was kind of like, yeah, interested in something which was like around me. What people felt was the end of like AAA gaming. And I think the conversation kind of like started because people were talking about GTA 6 and how like the game will be so unrelatable price-wise. And I was like, the interesting thing for me is that since basically the first crash of video game in the West, so like 1983, this is for me the first time the West is really going through what feels the collapse of the industry. Kind of like in a similar way to the bubble of like 83. And again, if you know about your video game history, at least a little bit, you have heard probably about this crash in 83. Let us remember, it's a complicated topic, but let us remember that like this crash only affected console gaming in the West. Other parts like of the world and like the gaming industry on PC, they did not care about that. They did not care about that. And I think this is what we see right now again. It's like you have people that are like, I just cannot buy games anymore. I just cannot buy games anymore. For me, this is very interesting because it's a situation that a lot of people around the world have known, right? If you live not in the West, the traditional West, and not in Japan, you have experienced like regional pricing for your entire life. You have experienced consoles being like completely unrelatable. You cannot buy a Nintendo console. You cannot buy like a PlayStation. You cannot buy games because like a game would be like, you know, half of your monthly wage or something like this. So what like Westerners are experiencing right now, if you are not a Westerner, is basically what you have experienced your entire life. And you know, there's some kind of like irony into it. But it's very funny how people are like, I just cannot justify playing like AAA games anymore. And I'm doing like a hard shift into indie gaming. And this is very interesting because like I've always been around people that were like very keen into like indie gaming forever, you know, people that started doing like playing both on like, you know, Newgrounds and stuff like this, and also experienced games like I don't know, Braid and like Super Meat Boy and all those like World of Goo, all those games, they experienced them like back in the days when they first released. And so this is the type of like people that would play as much indie games, let's say, as AAA games. And right now, I feel like we, or at least I encounter people that were really into AAA gaming or AA gaming, and that are like, this is not justifiable, so I need to lean into indies. And they're all like, what should I play? What should I play really? Because I have like no idea, you know, what is available. And this is like extremely, extremely interesting for me because I'm like, what games should I like recommend them? What would be the games that I feel like are the best way to showcase what the industry is still capable of doing? Because we are at a shift, at a moment, a frontier where what you would advise like people to play will basically shape, I think, the future of the industry. Mahjong Soul is free, but that's not the games I want to advise, I think. And I think Stardew Valley is not the game I want to recommend as well. Because like, in my opinion, you don't need me to tell you to play like Stardew Valley. Because everybody know Stardew Valley. You know, maybe you haven't played Stardew Valley, but like, you know what it is. And like, but Undertale is the same thing. Would you really advise people to play like Undertale when like it has such a big online presence and people kind of like already know to some extent what it is about? I'm not saying that those are bad games. I'm not saying those are bad games, but like, would those be the games that I would recommend to people? Because for me, I would go into like, you know, Outer Wilds, Pentiment, kind of like showcasing the weird things that like the industry can do, and then letting like just a way to whet their appetite into the diversity of things. Probably Undertale would kind of like be a pick, maybe. give them a Umineko or something and tie them to the chair until they're done. I think they're not playing visual novels for the rest of their life. You have lost them forever. And it's not just they don't play games anymore, it's like they are not your friends anymore. Like I would never... Umineko is such an important like piece of media for me, but I would never recommend like Umineko to anyone that would start with visual novels and stuff. But like that was kind of like my interrogation because I just don't exactly know what I would recommend. Among your picks, I think Undertale would be the one that I would be the most likely to recommend. But at this point, I'm like, why wouldn't I recommend people to play just Mother 3, for example? Just play Mother 3, Mother 1 and 2 also. Because playing like old school games, in my opinion, in the current landscape, it has the same value, the same worth as playing like indie games. And I think also there are like indie games that are like, you know, Hollow Knight material, and you have like indie games that are something that like, you know, a port of like Humaniki done by like a single person in their cave or something like that, which are, you know, different levels of like indie gamings. They should play this. Are we back into the... Oh my god, are we back into Black Box? This is crazy. But yeah, this was interesting for me, and like I don't have a good answer now, and I'm kind of like, you know, opening the question to you, because I feel like it will be, at least for me that is interested in the industry, that like I do think that video games are a very important part of my life. I'm kind of asking myself the question of like, how can I keep people interested in gaming, and also like, how can I like gently nudge them towards like what I think would be great for you know, the future. It's like someone going, recommend me a book to read. Yeah, but like every time I ask, you know, what kind of like genre you want, people are like, I can play everything. I can play everything, and I'm like, it doesn't help me, right? So I have to come with, you know, general recommendations every time I ask this question, which is like very interesting to me. Five Nights at Freddy's. To be honest, I've never played it. Why not just recommending something you love? That's kind of like what I'm doing nowadays. I have like put a little list for someone of the games that like I felt were, you know, kind of like a taste of my favorites, and also what I feel are quite approachable to people. Like my recommendation was like Shibuya Scramble, Baba Is You, Battle Chef Brigade Deluxe, Symphony of the Night, Castlevania, Celeste, Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, Clock Tower on the SNES, Disco Elysium, Eliza from Zachtronics, Famicom Tante Club Emio, Fatal Frame 3, Ghost Trick, Grim Fandango Remastered, some Hamtaro games on the GBA, Echo / you know, Shadow of the Colossus, and even like The Last Guardian, although I need to replay it. Ikaruga, Katamari Damacy, Mother 3, Night in the Woods, Paranormal Sight, Pentiment, Rhapsody that we have done on stream, Rule of Rose, Skies of Arcadia Legends, Tangled Tower, and Type Dreams. Like, I feel like, you know, I was trying to go for a blend of like games that are kind of like cult classics, but also games that most like people were probably not playing. Open TTD. Get them into retro gaming. I mean, like, this is kind of like my goal in life, trying to get people into retro gaming. Because my take is always like, people's, you know, I love retro gaming. I love retro gaming. And I'm always like, those are like my favorite games and stuff. And people are like, oh, but like I've never, you know, played games when I was younger, so I don't know them, and I feel like uncomfortable and stuff. And I'm like, if you haven't played those games, it means that know you can still discover them. You have like so much to discover, so many games to discover, and I'm really trying hard to do my propaganda for like retro gaming, because I mean, like it has been such a big part of my life. Come back when you're a little bit richer, Link +2. Base recommendations. I also did a list of like Yuri games that I recommend, and was so funny because like I kind of like did my recommendation list, and I was like flustered doing it because I was like, oh, I kind of remember those characters and the story, and like it made me very like flushed for some reason. I guess some people are afraid of seafaring. Speaking of that, I need to play how is it called? Isn't it the title of the game, like Seafarer? The game that is like no, isn't that, how is it called? Sea? It's a game like on the boat, and like it's kind of like deal with grief, something like that. I can't find the name of the game in my head. You have it, no? Do people like know what game I'm talking about? Recent game, quite long, very pretty pastel colors. You're on a ship, and I think you need to build like your ship or whatever. And you play like a girl, heartfelt, talking about grief, something like that. I don't know. If you have the name of the game right now, please send it to me, because I'm having a big blank on the name. Yeah, I just can't remember. I just can't remember. I was like seeing a lot of people doing recommendations of games like to me. Oh my god, I have so many games I need to play, but I don't have time. I don't have time. The sea scares me. It's one of the two main things that prevents me from traveling to foreign countries. The other being money. I think it's interesting. Like, for me, there's sea and there's sea. Like, you have like this, Mediterranean sea landscape that feels like quite welcoming, quite warm, and this is like one that I really relate to. Not the beach per se, but like standing on a cliff and watching the sea, something like that. I think this is like very, very nice. But like the sea, the ocean, like the deep sea, yeah, this is kind of like frightening. Recommend them Super Autopets for the unlimited yapping +2. I'm not ready to partake in the embrace of the Grandmother. The sea is beautiful but also scary, like spiders. And you know what? You are very real for that. You are very, very real for that. Sorry, I'm also like drinking because like I'm yapping too much. Once my friend got almost bitten by a beaver while swimming. Or in a river. This is funny. I think I've seen like a beaver once in my life. I was like very young and kind of like never happened again. But also this is very interesting because it makes me think of like when was, the last time I saw and you saw kind of like wild animals just living their lives. I think we live in like such a society nowadays. And especially if you live like in cities where it's like, it's really hard to get like those connection with nature and stuff. I haven't seen like wild animals in such a long time. Admittedly, I don't go outside of the city a lot nowadays since like the pandemic. But even back then, like it was really hard. Even when you went on like hikes and stuff, it was like pretty rare to like find wild animals in here. The translated cruise. The big reindeer looking thing. No, I think like it's a matter of like your plural form not being like the correct one. But like, also we are in a chat where almost everybody here is not, you know, a native speaker. I believe that like Kelly is the only one here that you know, that speaks native English. I was writing a lot speaking of English. Like I'm really happy that like my brain seems to have like gotten to the point of being able to write in English like very fluidly. This is like very uplifting. Wait, is it? What is the plural of moose then? Is it not? Oh my god, no, you're making me like hesitate. Oh, it's it's like invariable. Interesting. Interesting. I was talking about like people about that. Was it like also on the Discord server? I can't remember. I was talking about like the cause, the way you call like types of like groups of animals, and I think we had this discussion in Discord server at some point. But I find that it's so cute, just like so cute. I think everybody knows that like it's a school of fish. Everybody knows that like it's a flock of birds. But like you get into like the real, you know, complicated things, and this is like very fun. I mean, you should not be you should not learn them, in my opinion. There's no point in doing that, because even like back then it was like such a, it was just to flex basically. People were just like inventing things to flex back in the days. But there's such a, you know, poetic quality to it, like a murder of crows. I think a murder of crows is like pretty famous, but like a conspiracy of ravens is crazy. A parliament of owls, an exaltation of larks. It's like, this is crazy. Yeah, it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy of like ravens. So funny. And like a parliament of owls. Can you like imagine the owls like in their, you know, either scholar outfit or, you know, in a kind of like political assembly, and it's just like a parliament. But those groups are like literally nowadays, it's not a hard rule. Yeah, it's not a hard rule. Like you have some that kind of like solidified into things that people will recognize to some extent. But I think like you can mix and match, and this is also very funny. But again, it was like a way back then for people to flex about their knowledge. It's like, oh, I know the exact name of like that group of animals, and that's how I show like that I'm better. I have a better education than you. You fool of a commoner. So I think it doesn't matter if you use them correctly nowadays, but like just this ability to like conjure poetry is like very interesting to me. I love when language gets whimsical. Yeah, I completely agree. And like I've been like trying to do that in writing in English like a little bit more lately, and it's like very funny. What I really like is like mixing up like adjectives that do not make sense usually. It's like you're trying to describe something, and for example, like a visual quality or the color of something, and then you use like a word that is based on like another sense, you know? For example, I love when I'm describing how people are talking, instead of like using soft or like, you know, harsh, things like that would relate to like the voice per se, you use like colors. You use like hues, a hue of something, or you say that their voice was sparkling, and it gets the idea here, but like the person still has to think a little bit about like what it really means, but also you leave a little bit of interpretation to the reader, I believe. And I love those kind of like gaps that you see in writing where it's kind of like a game. You let the reader also play with you and try to interpret what you're talking about. Flamboyance of flamingos. Are those real things or not? I'm not sure. That's the most ivory towery thing I've ever heard. I don't mean that, you know. I'm not trying like to flex because I don't have like a good knowledge of like of those like groups of animals as well. It's just that, you know, the RP group I'm like writing with are called like the Crimson Ravens. So obviously like you can make jokes about us being a conspiracy, right? It's great to use unexpected descriptors like that because you're right, it forces the reader to think and engage. Plus it's more memorable. Yeah, I think like my most like crazy sentences are always like things that you would not expect, or even like images that like are surprising. And I think like I was like, this was so funny because I was kind of like searching through my files the other day and old writings in French, and I stumbled into like a sort of like short story that I wrote, and I had no recollection that I wrote that. I think it was like 8 years ago. I have no recollection of that short story. And then I read it again and I was like, who wrote that? Because this is so good. This is so good. I was just like making like breaks while reading, being like, you can't write things like this. This goes too hard. And like the end of the story is basically like the short story was like a day in the life of someone. And it was like at the first person and kind of like a sort of like stream of consciousness through her whole day. And so she is kind of like a very aloof and, you know, living in her own world. And she's like working in, you know, the library for the entire day. And then she leaves the library and she sees the sky. And the sky is like, you know, kind of like sunset-y to some extent. But it makes her like very sad to some extent. And there's this first sentence which is like, I think it's like she's listening to the radio and like to some, you know, political news, and it makes her like very distraught to some extent. And she was like, well, what I wrote was like, this world disgusts me. It's so beautiful. Wait, I can like share with you the thing probably. Let me get to it. Let me get that to you. So I did like an English translation, which is not a perfect translation, but I think it was good enough to kind of like showcase what I wanted to do. This is not what you should be able to see. What the heck? Okay, so I think you can see here. Imagine working at the library. She was working on her thesis or something like this. So you have like she is working, whatever. So she's kind of like, this is a very weird sequence where like it doesn't really make sense what she's like talking about. But like that was the point. It's like you just don't no, I mean like I know like it's not a perfect translation. It cannot be a perfect translation, but also like I was not completely happy with my translation. There were ideas I had in French that like I could not translate in English because of like the pacing of the language. It's such a like a it is written like someone is really talking in their head, so there's a very, you know, speaking pace to it and like a melody that was too hard to like translate in English. But like, okay, she's like Seeing that, whatever, she's like listening to Ravel's concerto, and it's like, this world disgusts me, but it's so beautiful. And this is when like the story shifts to something like that is very dreamy, to something that is like she feels distraught with her existence basically in the world. And at that point, it was just about like sending poetic bangers after bangers. And I love like this little line here. I was happy to see the sky when I left the library, but where has my little happiness gone? And this thing that like kind of like I was surprised that like of course my character was really deep into literature, but like I read that again and I was like, damn, this is really what I think about literature nowadays. As long as literature does not fail me, I can live. I can live. Like life is worth it because I have the words to like describe my experience in the world. So very interesting. But then she kind of like goes back home without realizing it. I've just closed my front door. I dream too much. But at least I'll still have that. So my dreams when I hit rock bottom. When I hit rock bottom, and then she's like thinking about like what will happen when she will hit rock bottom, because this particular thing was like a background for like a character in like a Vampire the Masquerade TTRPG thingy, right? And so like hitting rock bottom, it's kind of like getting turned into a vampire and having your life completely like, you know, turned upside down. So kind of like a sort of a premonition of like what is to come. And so now she's thinking about like what will happen when she'll hit rock bottom. And it's like, I'll probably take the prettiest blouse out of my wardrobe and the hopes from the back of my closet. And oh my God, I love this so much. And the hopes from the back of my closets, because you're talking about like clothes, and it makes sense that like we would like continue talking about clothes, and then no, you kind of like shift things like upon its head and being like, no, she's not like taking any physical object, but like she's taking like immaterial hopes, but for them hopes are like, you know, clothing. So it feels like she cannot live, she's naked without them. And I was like, man, what was I thinking back then? Because like this is very good. So yeah, talking about like, yeah, that Matisse reproduction next to my window, a sort of secret garden racked by abandonment. Kind of like difficult to translate, to be fair. Like in French I had a better idea, but like the idea was like, because this is the Matisse, right? This is the Jardin du Luxembourg. Well, the left part of it, I think you can see yeah, so that would be like the entire picture. And it's not like a sad picture, right? But like what I wanted to do like in this little like sentence was to kind of like shift the atmosphere of what that painting was and give it a way more, you know, desolate idea, at least in the head of like this character. I'll probably want to kiss my mother, listen to the Gradano's recordings with her. There's a lot of also in this text, there's a lot of like references, like explicit references to classical culture, because she is like classically appealed, and there's this sense of like she is like unreachable because of you know, the way she's just talking about like what she likes, and there's a kind of like, you know, almost autistic aspect to it, being lost in her own world of like classical references or something like this. Maybe I'll sit down with a cup of black tea and read René Char, thinking about the childhood I can no longer think about, thinking about friendship. Because also she's like kind of like she forgot about like her childhood. And then this is where I think like I cooked. Maybe when I hit rock bottom, it will be a one night stand. I will be beautiful like the death of a king. To be fair, I'm kind of like hesitating. It can be I, it can be like it. Both works, I think. But I like I. Because it's like you are beautiful and you would expect a comparison with something that is like physically and like, you know, that you can touch, basically, that is material, but then you describe it as something that is not. And you leave that very open, because the death of a king, it can happen in a multitude of ways, but it will be beautiful. So I'm kind of like letting the reader think about like this idea of the death of a king by themselves. You're so real for writing this in 2-column layout. Yeah, because I think it like kind of works with like the stream of consciousness. You really see like how in her head it flows. It just flows again and again and again. And she's just yapping without end. But I'm alone. I let myself fall into the bed, my hands pulling at the blanket. I only need a lot to stifle my tears. That will be my small change for the ferry. What was I cooking at this point? That will be my small change for the ferryman. So obviously, you know your, classical references, you know about like Charon and stuff. And you know that in ancient cultures, you would give like a coin to the ferryman so that like they ferry you across the Styx or whatever, other rivers, death rivers. You need this change to pay for like the trip. And that's why like in classical cultures, you would put like coins in the mouth of the dead, because like that would be the change like for them. But I was like, turn that upside down. She still has something in her mouth to pay for the ferryman, but this is her laugh. This is, the fact that she felt like she has lived like a happy life. That she can convince the ferryman that she is worthy enough to be like transported like across the Styx just because like she was happy when she was alive. And I was like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I will float on waves of amaranth, which like is a kind of like weird translation because in French I think it was like je vais traverser la mer à coups d'amarante, which is like a little bit different if you know French, but like whatever. If you get in a PDF, it makes very hard to read in small screen. I mean, it's probably like what you see a lot in like poetry, where like the setting of like the text, how it's put onto the page, is part of like the poetry as well. So it's not meant to be like practical to read to some extent. It's just made to fit the idea of like the poem. So there's like for example, I think a poem from Apollinaire. Because Apollinaire was kind of like, very famous for that. So like those would be like, the way he would write like in his calligram, trying to like fit the text into like a shape that would evoke something specific. I think he was like, Apollinaire was a bit too on the nose, like literally you talk about a woman, like it's literally you see the woman, but it looks pretty, to be fair, it looks pretty. But most of the time you also need like the text on the side to actually be able to read what is written. There's one with like a sort of like snail, and like the text is just a spiral, and you would like turn your book to be able to read like from the center to the rest. But yeah, obviously it's not to that point, but yeah. And I think this was my crazy line. Because this is like a line that like at this point we talked about like hitting rock bottom as something as the expression, right? Hitting rock bottom is just like being at the lowest in your life. But then you kind of like take that idea very literally and you use it like to kind of like give some strength to like your sentence. So like right now you're imagining, I think, the character really like dropping like a rock. And then you have the twist. It's like, my soul will crush the sky. And you would not expect like something falling to like crush what is above you. But I think it gives like just enough poetry to let yourself imagine something. What it means, to be fair, it does not really matter that much. It's just like such, for this character, is such a powerful like literary idea that it kind of lives by itself and you don't need much more than that. And I was like, reading that again, I was like, oh, like what is going on in here? What is going on in this story? Because like I forgot about it completely. Like this is genuinely among like the best thing I've written in French, and I completely forgot about it. So very, very interesting. And also like the text in French is like very not my usual style of writing, and it was like very fun to read again. Anyway, that's basically that for this. We have been streaming for like, we have been yapping for 1 hour and a half. It's as if we never left. Yeah, that's basically that. I'm doing like a lot of RP. Obviously, I'm writing like a lot in English. This is very, very fun. I'm having a lot of fun. And there's no reason it will change much, to be honest. Like I'm really enjoying this activity as something that is purely for myself and without any, expectations, or at least just the expectations I put on myself, but they're all like healthy ones, because like I'm surrounded by people that, without throwing me myself too much flowers, people are enjoying what I'm writing, so that makes me happy to, inspire them. But yeah, that's basically that. I kind of want to play some piano though. I said I wanted to play some piano, and this is really something that I want to do. So we'll transition like slowly to piano. Let me like go into my piano scene. Oh, by the way, can you hear the piano or not? Can you hear the piano or not? While I'm throw flower at me. Please don't. Please don't. And let me like search for like some music sheets, because like I'll be honest, I haven't played piano for quite a long time, so I'm a bit rusty right now. You can hear the piano. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So let's play a little. I don't know. Ghibli songs are always like very nice to play. I kind of like wanted to play something that I was listening to the other day, and I was like, I should play it, but like it might be scuffed, to be fair. I don't like this key. Okay, let's try to do something then. I am a little bit rusty, I think. Haven't played in like weeks, and it shows. It shows. Okay, let's try to play some Ghibli then, because I think it's like easier to play. There are also like piano collections, arrangements for like FF9 that I was listening to lately, and I really want to play them as well. What can we play? Kiki's delivery service is always like very funny to play. I really love how gentle it sounds. So maybe we should play that. And this one is crazy because the music sheet is like so damaged that I can't read what's in it. Can I show you what like the shit is looking like, because it's literally unreadable. It is literally unreadable. Let me try to show you this. Help. This is like what it looks like. The quality is so poor, and because like the screen is not exactly in front of me, I cannot read what it's saying. Especially like this part right here. I don't think you can see my cursor, but the one that is here, like with the quick notes in successions, the trilled. Is it? You just need to say it's good enough. I mean, it's just hard to like sight read, right? Is what I mean. I don't mind sight reading normally, but like if this is the quality, like although this is like a funny thing. Sorry, because like I'm yapping at the same time since like this is not very good piano right now. This is kind of the thing with the piano collection from like FF. So they are releasing them, you know. They started with like FF4, so we don't have anything for FF1 to 3 in terms of piano collections. And this was meant back then, I think, to be generally playable by like a lot of people. Um, because those piano collections, they're always like kind of like pieces that you can read pretty easily back then, and they serve like as good performance piece, I would say. But the more they went, like the more it kind of continued, the more they kind of like shifted that to like advanced level. Um, where you're not exactly meant to be able to play them like easily. I think the like starting from like 9, FF9, which is like the case here, things are getting like pretty complicated to the point like I don't think I can realistically like sight read them. And then you have like crazy arrangements for 10, 12, and 13. I think 13 is like really, really crazy because you have like some pieces that really go into almost performance, like concert recital difficulty, if I'm not mistaken. Like I think it's the case for like the Promise. Um, but I mean, we can try. Like, what is the first one? Let's try to like sight read the first one from like um also like you. I don't know why it disappeared on like OBS. The first one from like 13. I don't think I can show the like shit on screen, but like let me try to at least like get something done here. This is a bit scuffed. Like I should not. This is kind of like a lesson for me. Do not do like piano stream if you haven't like done piano for who knows how long. I don't know how long. Wait, this is like a. I'm so tired also. I don't know. I don't know. It's too hard. It's too hard. Um, this is the thing I think, like with music and also like a lot of skills in general. Not all of them, but like I do think that like music is really the case. Um, oh my god, you lose so much when you're not practicing. It kind of like disappears immediately. It has probably been like I think the last time I played piano was on stream. Was genuinely the last piano stream that we did. So it might have been I don't even know like what if I check like the channel when was the last piano stream? It might have been like it was like a month and a half ago, right? Almost like 2 months ago. And I did not like touch the piano like since that time. And yeah, kind of like a good lesson to remember. Although like obviously if you are a musician, if you are an artist, you know that like you should practice every day. Even if it's like almost nothing, even if it's just like 10 minutes, 10 minutes are better than like none, just to keep like muscular memory alive. Um, so yeah. Um, this is a bit too hard right now. I can try a little, like an easier one, just to finish. But like at this point, check if it's like playable. This one. Um, I'll be able to play my Lydian dominant legs until but also like it's a very different thing. Like being like I think an improviser and like a classical musician. And when you're put like in a sight reading or improvisatory thingy, because I think we talked about this like a lot. I do not improvise. I do like very poorly in improvisation. Um, because for me it has always been about like learning pieces by heart. Um, and we don't train licks basically. We don't have like licks that like we really know. And there are like some pieces that were just like decaying in my head. So yeah. And like sight reading, you get like good at sight reading by doing sight reading every day, not by like, trying to go once and it works. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Don't know why. I'm getting also I'm flushed for some reason. I feel like very hot, which is probably a sign that like I should stop streaming. But it has been 2 hour and almost 2 hour and a half, so I think like it's pretty good to stop here. Putting a pin on piano. We'll do like some piano again at some point, but after I practice and maybe with songs that I have actually prepared. Um, so okay, we say like Friday co-working stream. It will be this time we are working for real. It's not like last time where we were yapping the entire time instead of like working. We'll go back into like Pomodoro and do something like that that makes sense. Um, although considering like how I feel like today, for the past hour, I'll keep you appraised whether there is a stream on Friday or not. Thank you, Kelly. This is you flatter me considering like how it went today. But I'll keep you appraised for Friday. I don't know why I feel like so flushed. I don't think I'm sick. At least I don't. I hope I'm not sick. But yeah, you will know. I can't take another deep thing stream, so please let's work instead. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy to talk about like a heartfelt, things, but this was like a one of like real talk, Miyabi bleeding into stream, which is like not, God, look, not what I try to do. But yeah, thank you very much for coming for today. I mean, I have like a lot of like heartfelt conversation with a lot of people, lately. And this is good, but this is also tiring. As much as when you have like heartfelt conversation, even if it's uplifting, you reach a point where it's just like an overload of emotions. And it's like, I can't take this like anymore. And the funniest thing is like that my RPs are basically also like this. So I'm having like real life, deep conversations about things. And on top of that, like I write things that are like so heartfelt where, it's dealing about like people's issues and stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, I think that like I'm emotionally like a little bit tired. Like it has bled too much. Here, feel, think, oh my God, hear and feel, but like do not think. Do not think, just like head empty and enjoy your life. Okay, so thank you very much for today. This has been fun, like catching up with you. We should do that more. We should see each other more. But I'm too lazy and too tired to raid anyone, so I don't know. Maybe May might be streaming. I haven't checked like her schedule, but like feel free to check May to see if she's streaming if you want like to continue with someone. Either way, thank you very much for coming and see you next time. See you next time.